Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Western Canon Challenge, where we are reading the entirety of the Western literary canon out loud. Today we are continuing in The Well at the World's End, a tale by William Morris. We are in Book 2, Chapter 3, this entitled The Lady Telleth Ralph of the Past Days of Her Life. And with that said, I'll get started. Now shalt thou hear of me somewhat more than the arras in the book could tell thee, and yet not all, for time would fail us therefore, and moreover my heart would fail me. I cannot tell where I was born, nor of what lineage, nor of who were my father and mother. For this I have known not of myself, nor has any one told me. But when I first remember anything, I was playing about a garden, wherein was a little house built of timber and thatched with reed. And the great trees of the forest were all about the garden, save for a little croft which was grown over with high grass, and another somewhat bigger wherein were goats. There was a woman at the door of the house, and she spinning, yet clad in glittering raiment, and with jewels on her neck and fingers. This was the first thing that I remember, but all as it were a matter of every day, and use and wont, as it goes with the memories of children. Of such matters I will not tell thee at large, for thou knowest how it will be. Now the woman, who was as I came to know, was neither young nor old in those days, but of middle age, I called mother. But now I know that she was not my mother. She was hard and stern with me, but never beat me in those days, save to make me do what I would not have done unbeaten. And as to meat, I ate and drank what I could get, as she did, and indeed was well fed with simple meats, as thou mayest suppose from the aspect of me today. But as she was not fierce, but rather sour to me in her daily wont in my youngest days, so also she was never tender, or ever kissed me, or caressed me, for as little as I was. And I loved her not, nor did it ever come into my mind that I should love her, though I loved a white goat of ours, and deemed it dear and lovely. And afterwards other things also came to me from time to time, a squirrel that I saved from a weasel, and a jackdaw that fell from a tall ash tree nigh our house before he had learned how to fly, and a house mouse that would run up and down my hand and arm, and other such like things. And shortly I may say that the wild things, even to the conies and fawns, loved me, and had but little fear of me, and made me happy, and I loved them. Further, as I grew up, the woman set me to do such work as I had strength for as needs was. For there was no man dwelt in us, and seldom did I ever see man or woman there, and held no converse with any, save as I shall tell thee presently. Though now and again a man or a woman passed by, what they were I knew not, nor their whence and whither. But by seeing them I came to know that there were other folk in the world besides us too. Naught else I knew save how to spin, and tend our goats and milk them, and to set snares for birds and smaller deer. Though when I had caught them, it irked me sore to kill them, and I had to let them go again, had I not feared the carline. Every day early I was put forth from the house and garden, and forbidden to go back thither till dusk. While the days were long, and the grass was growing, I had to lead our goats to pasture in the woodlawns, and must take with me rock and spindle, and spin so much flax or hair as the woman gave me, or be beaten. But when the winter came, and the snow was on the ground, then that watching and snaring of wild things was my business. At last, one day of late summer, when I now some 15 summers was pasturing the goats not far from my house, the sky darkened, and there came up so great a storm of thunder and lightning, and huge drift of rain, that I was afraid. And being so near to the house, I hastened thither, driving the goats. And when I had tethered them in the shed of the croft, I crept trembling up to the house. When I was at the door, I heard the clack of the loom in the weaving chamber, and deemed that the woman was weaving there. But when I looked, behold, there was no one on the bench, though the shuttle was flying from side to side, and the shed opening and changing, and the sleigh coming home in due order. Therewithal I heard a sound as one singing a song in a low voice, but the words I could not understand. Then terror seized on my heart, but I stepped over the threshold, And as the door of the chamber was open, I looked aside and saw therein the woman sitting stark naked on the floor with a great open book before her, and it was from her mouth that the song was coming. Grim she looked and awful, for she was a big woman, black-haired and stern of aspect in her daily wont, speaking to me as few words as might be, and those harsh enough, yea, harsher than when I was but little. I stood for one moment afraid beyond measure, though the woman did not look at me, and I hoped she had not seen me. Then I ran back into the storm, though it was now wilder than ever, and ran and hid myself in the thicket of the wood, half dead with fear and wondering what would become of me. But finding that no one followed after me, I grew calmer, and the storm also drew off, and the sun shone out a little before his setting. So I sat and spun, with fear in my heart, till I had finished my tale of thread, and when dusk came, stole back again to the house, though my legs would scarce bear me over the threshold into the chamber. There sat the woman in her rich attire, no otherwise than her wont, nor did she say aught to me. But she looked at the yarn that I had spun, to see that I had done my task, and nodded sternly to me as her wont was. And I went to bed amongst my goats as I was used to do, but slept not towards morning. And then images of dreadful things, and of miseries that I may not tell thee of, mingled with my sleep for long. So I awoke, and ate my meat, and drank of the goat's milk with a heavy heart, and then went into the house. And when I came into the chamber, the woman looked at me, and, contrary to her wont, spoke to me, and I shook with terror at her voice. She said naught but this, "Go fetch thy white goat, and come back to me therewith." I did so, and followed after her, sick with fear, and she led me through the wood into a lawn which I knew well, round which was a wall, as it were, of great yew trees. And amidst a table of stone made of 4 uprights, and a great stone plank on the top of them. This was the only thing in all the wood wherein I was used to wonder which was of man's handiwork, save and except our house, and the sheds and fences about it. The woman stayed and leaned against the stonework, and said to me, "Go about now, and gather dry sticks for a fire." I durst do naught else, and said to myself that I should be whipped if I were tardy, though forsooth I thought she was going to kill me. And I brought her a bundle, and she said, "Fetch more." And when I had brought her 7 bundles, she said, "It is enough. Stand over against me and hearken." So I stood there quaking, for my fear, which had somewhat abated while I went to and fro after the wood, now came back upon me tenfold. She said, "It were thy due that I should slay thee here and now, as thou slayest the partridges which thou takest in the springs. But for certain causes I will not slay thee. Again, it were no more than thy earnings were I to torment thee till thou shouldest cry out for death to deliver thee from the anguish, and if thou wert a woman grown, even so would I deal with thee. But thou art but yet a child, therefore I will keep thee to see what shall befall betwixt us. Yet must I do somewhat to grieve thee, and moreover something must be slain and offered up here on this altar, lest all come to naught, both thou and I, and that which we have to do. Hold thy white goat now, which thou lovest more than aught else, that I may redden thee and me and this altar with the blood thereof." I durst do naught but obey her, and I held the poor beast, that licked my hands and bleated for love of me. And now, since my terror and the fear of death was lessened at her words, I wept sore for my dear friend. But the woman drew a strong, sharp knife from her girdle and cut the beast's throat, and dipped her fingers in the blood and reddened both herself and me on the breast and the hands and the feet. And then she turned to the altar and smote blood upon the uprights and the face of the stone plank. Then she bade me help her, and we laid the 7 faggots on the altar, and laid the carcass of the goat upon them, and she made fire, but I saw not how, and set it to the wood, and when it began to blaze, she stood before it with her arms outspread, and sang loud and hoarse to a strange tune. And though I knew not the words of her song, it filled me with dread, so that I cast myself down on the ground and hid my face in the grass. So she went on till the beast was all burned up, and the fire became naught but red embers. And then she ceased her song and sank down upon the grass, and laid her head back, and so fell asleep. But I durst not move from the place, but cowered in the grass there, I know not how long, till she arose and came to me and smote me with her foot and cried, Rise up, fool! What harm hast thou? Go milk thy goats and lead them to pasture. And therewith she strode away home, not heeding me. As for me, I arose and dealt with my goats as she bade me, and presently I was glad that I had not been slain, yet thenceforth was the joy of my life that I had amongst the goats marred with fear, and the sounds of the woodland came to me mingled with terror. And I was sore afraid when I entered the house in the morning and the evening, and when I looked on the face of the woman, though she was no harder to me than heretofore, but maybe somewhat softer. So wore the autumn, and winter came, and I fared as I was wont, setting springs for fowl and small deer, and for all the roughness of the season at the time it pleased me better than the leafy days, because I had less memory than of the sharpness of my fear on that day at the altar. Now one day as I went under the snow-laden trees, I saw something bright and big lying on the ground, and drawing nearer I saw it was some child of man. So I stopped and cried out, Awake and arise, lest death come on thee in this bitter cold. But it stirred not. So I plucked up heart and came up to it. And lo, a woman clad in fair raiment of scarlet and fur, and I knelt down by her to see if I might help her. But when I touched her, I found her cold and stiff and dead, though she had not been dead long, for no snow had fallen on her. It still wanted more than hour of twilight, and I by no means durst go home till nightfall, so I sat on there and watched her, and put the hood from her face and the glove from her hands. And I deemed her a goodly and lovely thing, and was sorry that she was not alive, and I wept for her, and for myself also, that I had lost her fellowship. So when I came back to the house at dark with the venison, I knew not whether I tell my mistress and tyrant concerning this matter, but she looked on me and said at once, Wert thou going to tell me of something that thou hast seen? So I told her all, even as it was, and she said to me, Hast thou taken aught from the corpse? Nay, said I. Then must I hasten, she said, and be before the wolves. Therewith she took a brand from the fire and bade me bear one also and lead her. So did I easily enough, for the moon was up, and what with moon and snow it was well nigh as bright as the day. So when we came to the dead woman, my mistress kneeled down by her and undid the collar of her cloak, which I had not touched, and took something from her neck swiftly. And yet I, who was holding the torch, saw that it was a necklace of blue stones and green, with gold between. Yea, dear champion, like unto thine as one peace god is to another, quoth she. And therewith the distressfulness of her face, which had worn Ralph's heart while she had been telling her tale, changed, and she came, as it were, into a new life and the love of him again. She kissed him and laid her cheek to his, and he kissed her mouth, and then she fetched a sigh and began with her story again. My mistress took the necklace and put it in her pouch, and said as to herself, Here then is another seeker who hath not found, unless one should dig a pit for her here when the thaw comes, and call it the Well at the World's End. Belike it will be for her as help as the real one. Then she turned to me and said, Do thou with the rest what thou wilt. And therewith she went back hastily to the house. But as for me, I went back also, and found a pick and a mattock in the goat-house. I came back in the moonlight, and scraped the snow away, and dug a pit, and buried the poor damsel there with all her gear. Wore the winter thenceforth not that I need tell of, only I thought much of the words that my mistress had spoken. Spring came and went, and summer also, well nigh tidingless. But one day, as I drave the goats from our house, there came from the wood 4 men a horseback and weaponed, but so covered with their armor that I might see little of their faces. They rode past me to our house, and spake not to me, though they looked hard at me. But as they went past, I heard one say, If she might but be our guide to the Well at the World's End. I durst not tarry to speak with them, but as I looked over my shoulder, I saw them talking to my mistress in the door. Meseemed she was clad but in poor homespun cloth instead of her rich apparel, and I am far-sighted and clear-sighted. After this the autumn and winter that followed it passed away tidingless. Chapter 4. The Lady Tells of Her Deliverance. Now I had outgrown my old fear, and not much befell to quicken it, and ever I was as much out of the house as I could be. That about this time my mistress, from being kinder to me than before, began to grow harder, and oft times used me cruelly, but of her deeds to me, my friend, thou shalt ask me no more than I tell thee. On a day of Maytide I fared abroad with my goats, and went far with them, further from the house than I had been as yet. The day was the fairest of the year, and I rejoiced in it, and felt as if some exceeding great good were about to befall me, and the burden of fear seemed to have fallen from me. So I went till I came to a little flowery dell, beset with blossoming whitethorns, and with a fair stream running through it. A place somewhat like to this, save that the stream there was bigger. And the sun was hot about noontide, so I did off my raiment, which was rough and poor, and more meet for winter than Maytide, and I entered a pool of the clear water, and bathed me and sported therein, smelling the sweet scent of the whitethorns, and hearkening to the song of the many birds. And when I came forth from the water, the air was so soft and sweet to me, and the flowery grass so kind to my feet, and the May blooms fell upon my shoulders, that I was loath to do on my rough raiment hastily, and withal I looked to see no child of man in that wilderness. So I sported myself there a long while, and milked a goat, and drank of the milk, and crowned myself with whitethorn and harebells. I held the blossoms in my hand, and felt also that I had some might in me, and that I should not be a thrall of that sorceress forever. And that day, my friend, belike was the springtide of the life, and the love that thou holdest in thy kind arms. But as I abode thus in that fair place, and had just taken my rock and spindle in hand, that I might go on with my task, and give as little occasion as I might for my mistress to chastise me, I looked up and saw a child of man coming down the side of the little dale towards me. So I sprang up and ran to my raiment, and cast them on me hastily, for I was ashamed. And when I saw that it was a woman, I thought at first that it was my mistress coming to seek me, and I thought within myself that if she smote me, I would bear it no more, but let it be seen which of the twain was the mightier. But I looked again, and saw that it was not she, but a woman smaller and older. So I stood where I was, and abode her coming, smiling and unafraid, and half-clad. She drew near, and I saw that it was an old woman, grey-haired, uncomely of raiment, but with shining bright eyes in her wrinkled face, and she made an obeisance to me, and said, I was passing through this lonely wilderness, and I looked down into the little valley, and saw these goats there, and the lovely lady lying naked amongst them, and I said, I am too old to be afraid of aught, for if she be a goddess come back again from yore agone, she can but make an end of a poor old carline, a gangrel body, who hath no joy of her life now. And if she be of the daughters of men, she will be like, methink her, of her mother, and be kind to me for her sake, and give me a piece of bread and a draught of her goat's milk. I spake hastily, for I was ashamed of her words, though I only half understood them. I hear thee, I deem that thou mockest me. I have never known a mother. I am but a poor thrall, a goatherd dwelling with a mistress in a nook of this wildwood. I have never a piece of bread, but as to the goat's milk, that thou shalt have at once. So I called one of the goats to me, for I knew them all, and milked her into a wooden bowl that I had carried slung about me, and gave the old woman to drink. And she kissed my hand, and drank, and spake again, but no longer in a whining voice, like a beggar bidding alms in the street, but frank and free. Damsel, she said, now I see that thy soul goes with thy body, and that thou art kind and proud at once. And whatever thou art, it is no mock to say of thee that thou art as fair as thou fairest. And I think that this will follow thee, that henceforth no man who seeth thee once will forget thee ever, or cease to long for thee. Of a surety this is thy weird. Now I see that thou knowest no more of the world and its ways than one of the hinds that run in these woods. So, if thou wilt, I will sit down by thee and tell thee much that shall avail thee, and thou in thy turn shalt tell me all the tale concerning thy dwelling, and thy service, and the like. I said, I may not, I durst not. I serve a mighty mistress, and she would slay me if she knew that I had spoken to thee, and woe's me, I fear that even now she will not fail to know it. Depart in peace. Nay, she said, Thou needest not tell me, for I have an inkling of her and her ways. But I will give thee wisdom, and not sell it to thee at a price. Sit down then, fair child, on this flowery grass, and I will sit beside thee, and tell thee of many things worth thine heeding. So there we sat a while, and in good sooth she told me much of the world which I had not yet seen, of its fairness and its foulness, of life and death, and desire and disappointment and despair, so that when she had done, if I were wiser than erst, I was perchance little more joyous, and yet I said to myself that come what would, I would be a part of all that. But at last she said, Lo, the day is waning, and thou hast two things to do. Either go home to thy mistress at once, or flee away from her by the way that I shall show thee. And if thou wilt be ruled by me, and canst bear thy thraldom yet a little while, thou wilt not flee at once, but abide till thou hast seen me again. And since it is here that thou hast met me, here mayest thou meet me again. For the days are long now, and thou mayest easily win thy way hither before noon on any day. So I tied my goatskin shoes to my feet, and drave my goats together, and we went up together out of the dale, and we were in the wide-spreading plain of the waste. And the carline said, Dost thou know the quarters of heaven by the sun? Yea, said I. Then, quoth she, whenso thou desirest to depart, and come into the world of folk that I have told thee of, set thy face a little north of west, and thou shalt fall in with something or somebody before long. But be speedy on that day, as thou art light-footed, and make all the way thou canst before thy mistress comes to know of thy departure, for not lightly will anyone let loose such a thrall as thou. I thanked her, and she went her ways over the waste, I wotted not whither, and I drave my goats home as speedily as I might. The mistress meddled not with me by word or deed, though I was short of my due tale of yarn. The next day I longed sore to go to the dale and meet the carline, but I durst not. And the next day I fared in likewise. But the third day I longed so to go that my feet must needs take me there, whatsoever might befall. And when I had been in the dale a little, thither came the carline, and sat down by me, and fell to teaching me wisdom, and showed me letters, and told me what they were, and I learned like a little lad in the chorister school. Thereafter I mastered my fear of my mistress, and went to that dale day by day, and learned of the carline, though at whiles I wondered when my mistress would let loose her fury upon me, for I called to mind the threat she had made to me on the day when she offered up my white goat. And I made up my mind to this, that if she fell upon me with deadly intent, I would do my best to slay her before she should slay me. But so it was that now again she held her hand from my body, and scarce cast a word at me ever, but gloomed at me and fared as if hatred of me had grown great in her heart. So the days went by, and my feet had worn a path through the wilderness to the Dale of Lore. And May had melted into June, and the latter days of June were come, and on Midsummer Day I went my ways to the dale according to my wont, when, as I was driving my goats hastily, I saw a bright thing coming over the heath toward me, and I went on my way to meet it, for I had no fear now, except what of my mistress lingered in my heart. I looked at everything I saw of new, and should add some joy to my heart. So presently I saw that it was a weaponed man riding a white horse, and anon he had come up to me and drawn rein before me. I wondered exceedingly at beholding him, and the heart leaped within me at his beauty. For though the carline had told me of the loveliness of the sons of men, that was but words, and I knew not what they meant. And the others that I had seen were not young men or goodly, and those last, as I told thee, I could scarce see their faces. And this one was even fairer than the dead woman that I had buried, whose face was worn with toil and trouble, as I now called to mind. He was clad in bright green shining armor, with a gay surcoat of green, embroidered with flowers over it. He had a light sallay on his head, and the yellow locks of his hair flowed down from under, and fell on his shoulders. His face was as beardless as thine, dear friend, but not clear brown like thine, but white and red like a blossom. Ralph spake and said, Belike it was a woman, and his voice sounded loud in the quiet place. She smiled on him and kissed his cheek, and said, Nay, nay, dear champion, it is not so. God rest his soul, many a year he has been dead. said Ralph. Many a year. What meanest thou? Ah, she said, fear not, as I am now, so I shall be for thee many a year. Was not thy fear that I should vanish away, or change into something unsightly and gruesome? Fear not, I say. Am I not a woman in thine own? And again she flushed bright red, and her grey eyes lightened, and she looked at him all confused and shamefaced. He took her face between his hands and kissed her over and over. Then he let her go and said, I have no fear. Go on with thy tale, for the words thereof are thy kisses to me, and the embracing of thine hands and thy body. Tell on, I pray thee. She took his hand in hers and spake, telling her tale as before. Friend, well beloved for ever, this fair young knight looked on me, and as he looked, his face flushed as red as mine even did now. And I tell thee that my heart danced with joy as I looked on him, and he spake not for a little while. And then he said, Fair maiden, canst thou tell me of any who will tell me a word of the way to the well at the world's end? I said to him, Nay, I have heard the word once, and no more. I know not the way, and I am sorry that I cannot do for thee that which thou wouldest. And then I spake again, and told him that he should by no means stop at our house. And I told him what it was like, so that he might give it the go-by. I said, Even if thou hast to turn back again, and fail to find the thing that thou seekest, yet I beseech thee ride not into that trap. He sat still on his saddle a while, staring at me, and I at him. And then he thanked me, but with so bad a grace that I wondered of him if he were angry. And then he shook his rein and rode off briskly, and I looked after him a while, and then went on my way. But I had gone but a short while, when I heard horse hoofs behind me. I turned and looked, and lo, it was the knight coming back again. So I stayed and abided him. And when he came up to me, he leapt from his horse, and stood before me, and said, I must needs see thee once again. I stood and trembled before him, and longed to touch him. And again he spake, breathlessly as one who has been running. I must depart, for I have a thing to do that I must do, but I long sorely to touch thee, and kiss thee. Yet unless thou freely willest it, I will refrain me. Then I looked at him and said, I will it freely. Then he came close up to me, and put his hand on my shoulder, and kissed my cheek. But I kissed his lips, and then he took me in his arms, and kissed me, and embraced me. And there in that place, and in a little while, we loved each other sorely. But in a little while he said to me, I must depart, for I am as one whom the avenger of blood followeth. And now I will give thee this, not so much as a gift, but as a token that we have met in the wilderness, thou and I. Therewith he put his hand to his neck, and took from it this necklace which thou seest here. And I saw that it was like that which my mistress took from the neck of the dead woman, and no less is it like the one that thou wearest, Ralph. I took it in my hand, and wept that I might not help him, and he said, It is little likely that we shall meet again. But by the token of this collar, that thou mayest wot that I ever long for thee till I die. For though I am a king's son, this is the dearest of my possessions. I said, Thou art young, and I am young. Mayhappen we shall meet again. But thou shalt know that I am but a thrall, a goatherd. For I knew by what the old woman told me of somewhat of the mightiness of kings of the world. Yea, he said, and smiled most sweetly, that is easy to be seen. Yet if I live, as I think not to do, thou shalt sit where great men shall kneel to thee, not as I kneel now for love, and that I may kiss thy knees and thy feet, but because they needs must worship thee. Therewith he arose to his feet, and leapt on his horse, and rode his way speedily. And I went upon my way with my goats, and came down into the dale of Lore, and found the old woman abiding me. And she came to me, and took me by the hands, and touched the collar, for I had done it about my neck, and said, Dear child, thou needest not tell me thy tale, for I have seen him. But if thou must needs wear his necklace, I must give thee a gift to go with it. But first sit down by the old carline a while, and talk with her. For meseemeth it will be but a few days ere thou shalt depart from this utmost wilderness, and the woods before the mountains. So I sat down by her, and in spite of her word, I told her all that had befallen betwixt me and the king's son, for my heart was too full that I might refrain me. She nodded her head from time to time, but said naught till I had made an end. And then she fell to telling me of many matters for my avail, but yet arose earlier than her wont was. And when we were about sundering on the path which I had trodden above the dale, she said, Now must I give thee that gift to go along with the gift of the lover, the king's son, and I think that thou wilt find of it avail before many days are gone by. Therewith she took from her pouch a strong, sharp knife, and drew it from the sheath. She flashed it in the afternoon sun, and gave it to me. And I took it and laid it in my bosom, and thanked her, for I thought that I understood her meaning, and how it would avail me. Then I went driving my goats home speedily, so that the sun was barely set when I came to the garth. A great horror rather than a fear of my mistress was on me, and lo, she stood in the door of the house, gazing down the garth and the woodland beyond, as though she were looking for my coming. And when her eyes lighted on me, she scowled and drew her lips back from her teeth, and clenched her hands with fury, though there was naught in them. She was a tall and strong woman, though now growing somewhat old, but as for me, I had unsheathed the carline's gift before I came to the garth, and now I held it behind my back in my left hand. I had stayed my feet some 6 paces from the threshold, and my heart beat quick, but the sick fear and cowering had left me, though the horror of her grew in my heart. My goats had all gone off quietly to their house, and there was nothing betwixt me and her. And clearing from my sleeve the arm of me which held the knife, the rough clasp which fastened my raiment together at the shoulder had given way, and the cloth had fallen and left my bosom bare, so that I knew that the collar was clearly to be seen. So we stood a moment, and I had no words, but she spake at last in a hard, snarling voice, such as she oftenest used to me, but worse. Now at last the time has come when thou art of no more use to me, for I can see thee what thou hast got for thyself. But know now that thou hast not yet drunk of the well at the world's end, and that it will not avail thee to flee out of the wood. For as long as I live, thou wilt not be able to get out of the reach of my hand, and I shall live long, I shall live long. Come then, and give thyself up to me, that I may deal with thee as I threatened when I slew thy friend the white goat, for indeed I knew then that it would come to this. She had but twice or thrice spoken to me so many words together as this, but I answered never a word, but stood watching her warily. And of a sudden she gave forth a dreadful screaming roar, wherewith all the wood rang again, and rushed at me. But my hand came from behind my back, and how it was I knew not, but she touched me not till the blade had sunk into her breast, and she fell across my feet. Her right hand hung clutching my raiment. So I loosed her fingers from the cloth, shuddering with horror the while, and drew myself away from her and stood a little aloof, wondering what should happen next. And indeed I scarce believed but she would presently rise up from the ground and clutch me in her hands and begin the tormenting of me, but she moved no more, and the grass all about her was reddened with her blood, and at last I gathered heart to kneel down beside her, and found that she was no more breathed than any of those conies or partridges which I had been used to slay for her. Then I stood and considered what I should do, and indeed I had been pondering this a while from the dale thereto, in case I should escape my mistress. So I soon made up my mind that I would not dwell in that house even for one night, lest my mistress should come to me though dead, and torment me. I went into the house while it was yet light, and looked about the chamber, and saw 3 great books there laid on the lectern, but durst not have taken them, even had I been able to carry them. Nor durst I even look into them, for fear that some spell might get to work in them if they were opened. But I found a rye loaf whereof I had eaten somewhat in the morning, and another untouched, and hanging to a horn of the lectern I found the necklace which my mistress had taken from the dead woman. These I put into my scrip, and as to the necklace, I will tell thee how I bestowed it later on. Then I stepped out into the twilight which was fair and golden, and full fan I was of it. Then I drove the goats out of their house, and went my way towards the Dale of Lore, and said to myself that the carline would teach me what further to do. And I came there before the summer dark had quite prevailed, and slept sweetly and softly amongst my goats, after I had tethered them in the best of the pasture. Chapter 5. Yet more of the lady's story. Lo, thou beloved, she said, thou hast seen me in the wildwood with the little good quickened in me. Doth not thine heart sink at the thought of thy love, and thy life given over to the keeping of such a one? He smiled in her face and said, Belike thou hast done worse than all that thou hast told me. In these days past I have wondered often what there was in the stories which they of the Burg had against thee. Yet sooth to say they told little of what thou hast done, no more belike than being their foe. She sighed and said, Well, hearken, yet shall I not tell thee every deed that I have been partaker in. I sat in the dale that next day and was happy, though I longed to see that fair man again. Sooth to say, since my mistress was dead, everything seemed fairer to me, yea, even mine own face, as I saw it in the pools of the stream, though whiles I wondered when I should have another mistress, and how she would deal with me, and ever I said I would ask the carline when she came again to me. But all that day she came not, nor did I marvel thereat, but when 7 days passed, and still she came not, I fell to wondering what I should do, for my bread was all gone, and I durst not go back to the house to fetch meal, though there was store of it there. Howbeit I drank of the milk of the goats, and made curds thereof with the woodland roots, and ate of the woodberries like as thou hast done, friend, and now. And it was easier for me to find a livelihood in the woods than it had been for most folk, so well as I knew them. So wore the days, and she came not, and I began to think that I should see the wise carline no more, as indeed fell out that time, and the days began to hang heavy on my hands. And I fell to thinking that way to the west in the peopled parts, where the carline had told me. And whiles I went out of the dale, and went away hither and thither through the woods, and so far that thrice I slept away out of the dale, but I knew that the peopled parts would be strange to me, and I feared to face them alone. Thus wore the days till July was on the wane, and on a morning early I awoke with unwonted sounds in mine ears, and when my eyes were fairly open, I saw a man standing over me, and a white horse cropping the grass hard by. And my heart was full and fain, and I sprang to my feet and showed him a smiling happy face, for I saw at once that it was that fair man come back again. But lo, his face was pale and worn, though he looked kindly on me, and he said, O my beloved, I have found thee, but I am faint with hunger, and I can speak but little. And even therewith he sank down on the grass, but I bestirred myself and gave him milk of my goats, and curds and berries, and the life came into him again. And I sat down by him and laid his head in my lap, and he slept a long while. When he awoke, and it was toward sunset, he kissed my hands and my arms, and said to me, Fair child, perhaps thou wilt come with me now, and even if thou art a thrall, thou mayest flee with me, for my horse is strong and fat, though I am weak, for he can make his dinner on the grass. Then he laughed, and I no less, but I fed him with my poor victual again, and as he ate, I said, I am no mistress's thrall now, for the evening of the day whereon I saw thee, I slew her, else she had slain me. The saints be praised, said he, thou wilt come with me then. Oh, yea, said I. Then I felt shamefaced and reddened. But I said, I have abided here many days for a wise woman who hath taught me many things, but withal I hoped that thou wouldest come also. Then he put his arms about my shoulders and loved me much. But at last he said, Yet is it now another thing than that which I looked for when I talked of setting thee by me on the golden throne. For now am I a beaten man. I have failed of that I sought, and suffered shame and hunger and many ills. Yet ever I thought that I might find thee here or hereby. Then a thought came into my mind, and I said, Else maybe thou hadst found what thou soughtest, and overcome the evil things. Maybe, he said, it is now but a little matter. As for me, I could have no guess at what were the better things he had meant for me, and my heart was full of joy, and all seemed better than well. and we talked together long till the day was gone. Then we kissed and embraced each other in the dale of Lore, and the darkness of summer seemed but short for our delight. This is the end of chapters 3 through 5 of Book 2 of The Well at the World's End, a tale by William Morris. In the next video, we will proceed to chapter 6, entitled The Lady Tells Somewhat of Her Doings After She Left the Wilderness. Thank you for listening.